Welcome back to another episode of the She Overcomes podcast, where we sit down with trailblazers, change makers, and visionaries who are shaping the future in their own unique ways. She Overcomes inspires, equips, and raises up women to become their boldest selves personally and professionally. We empower existing leaders who live with courage and confidence in community. I'm Melanie Rudd, your host and founder of She Overcomes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have Ashley Ritteman on the podcast. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Yes. All right, I'm going to read Ashley's bio because she is a big deal. Ashley, who is the CEO and co-founder of Valor Victoria. She has a passion for rail networks, which began when studying the inland flows of international containers as a graduate student at NDSU. She knew there was a way to reduce costs for importers while driving capacity into the hands of exporters. Ashley has effectively turned this passion into a business and now has a great team that has come alongside her and her vision. Ashley develops new business opportunities, studies customer and vendor needs and visions for growth, and finds new ways to support the amazing work of Valor Victoria. Outside her professional passions, her life is dedicated to family. Ashley co-founded Valor Victoria with the goal of having it all. They believe that with the right people around you, it's possible to be a working professional while not compromising at home. Ashley and her husband, Thomas, have two beautiful babies, and in 2020, they started pursuing Thomas's lifelong dream of operating a first-generation grain farm. Most often, you'll find the two of them with tired eyes and full hearts, leaving it all on the field for this American dream. Ashley, there's so much I want to talk about. How are you? How's it going?
I am good. So happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for coming. So a little briefing. So I first met Ashley a couple years ago. You were speaking at Startup Brew. And then it was funny, this Labor Day, I was like sitting and praying and looking over the water, and you came back to my mind. And I was just like, that's bizarre. I guess I need to reach out. And so now we've just like reconnected, and it's been absolutely wonderful.
Fast friends.
Fast friends. Yeah.
Yes.
I know. I just like, I remember seeing you at another Startup Brew and being like, hello, would you like to be my friend? We've emailed. Yes. I'm so awkward. I don't even care. That's who I am. Okay.
Matches my tone. It's perfect.
It's great. And actually, here's what I want to say too, now that I think about it. I think one of your texts to me was probably the most profound text, but this was my favorite part. It seems that this is the type of friendship you want. And I was like, it is. It is. So here we are. Okay. Tell me more about just you are in such a unique niche. Tell me about Valor Victoria, kind of where it came from, how you birthed this, and how you and Megan co-found. I mean, just like tell us the story of why now, why what, and why did you move back to this area?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Valor Victoria really was birthed out of, really, if I go back, it maybe was a lifelong dream. I grew up in rural North Dakota, and I loved my rural community. I grew up in Rugby.
Yeah.
And I cherish it more now, and the childhood I had, reflecting on just everything that I didn't know then that I know now. But when I was a kid growing up in Rugby, I wanted to see the world. It just felt really small and confined. And so when I left, I had a pact with my parents that I could go as far as a day's drive would take me.
Yeah.
So I ended up in a cornfield in Iowa, which was not largely different from Rugby.
Yeah, right.
So lessons learned there. But from Iowa, I did take some internships in college, which landed me in Singapore. And I was flying into Singapore in 2006 or 7, I think, was my first internship. And I didn't even realize what I was witnessing. But as I was landing at the airport, there were hundreds of ocean vessels just parked on the shores of Singapore.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, wow, this is incredible. This is different. I don't know anything about this, but I'm excited to get in and have this adventure. And I quickly became very homesick. And so I found a coffee shop in Singapore where I could watch the ships come and go, because a lot of the ships had names of U.S. cities on them, like the Chicago. And so I would watch the ships load, and I watched containers being loaded onto the ships, and it was kind of my connection to home in a weird way. And from there, I knew I wanted to go back to North Dakota some way. I wanted to be back home with my family, but I wanted that touch to international business. And so after my undergraduate in Iowa, I came back to NDSU and studied agribusiness and applied economics as a master's student. So that I could have, really in North Dakota, if you want to know the import-export economy, you have to know agriculture. And so I went to NDSU and did the Ag Econ program, learned a ton about grain markets. Best thing I got out of that program was my husband. Met him on the first day.
That's so sweet. And he is really kind. He's so sweet.
But so from there, when I was at NDSU, I took an internship with the North Dakota Trade Office. And I learned just the dynamics of what it means to be an exporter in the state of North Dakota. And really the largest barrier to trade for any Midwestern or rural exporter is the access of available containers. And those were the same containers I was watching load in Singapore with import goods coming to the U.S. And so this dream birthed in me of how do you change the geography of market mapping through rail. And what that means is once you land a container closer to the goods on the import side, if you land a container closer to consumption, you're cutting out truck miles, you cut out carbon emissions, and you cut out cost. And you actually are able to leverage trucks in a much more meaningful way, and you can get drivers home at night. And so it's not that we're replacing truck, we're just making truck more efficient through the use of rail and taking rail into, like I said, the point of consumption. And what that largely means for exporters is the age-old problem in international or shipping in general is that imports drive to population centers and exports come out of rural America. So how do you match up those two on the map to, again, drive that container closer to consumption while putting the container emptied into the hands of an exporter to load with a grain product to export internationally. And so when I was at the North Dakota Trade Office, I saw just these amazing businesses that had so much potential, but they didn't have the raw material, which is the container, which brought a global marketplace to them. And so I've just since then, this is all I've done. It's been my life mission to figure out how you change that geography. And so I went and I worked for BNSF or the BNSF network. I was actually at a company called BNSF Logistics, but largely worked in a very unique role where after my graduate education at NDSU, I was put in a position to really manage and lead the startup of the Minot, North Dakota intermodal terminal, which was a great achievement because our state of North Dakota had been lobbying for this type of rail service to come to the state for decades. And because of the oil boom that was turning on about that same time, early 2010s, we had, for the first time, a huge influx of import activity coming into the state with ceramic proppants or frac sand. Manufactured frac sand. And so we had, I think the BNSF network saw the opportunity that there was really a demand growing in the oil industry, and then an opportunity to solve something that between BNSF and the state had been working towards for a very long time. And so I got the opportunity to spearhead that. And it was just a very unique role in the industry because it crossed over. I technically was what the industry calls a non-vessel operating common carrier, or an NVOCC. That means that I could essentially broker ocean freight and the inland freight. And the way that the industry works today is there's only a handful, 8 to 10 major ocean carriers that control all of global commerce. And they largely set the economics and the dynamics on the water. And in that, they're working with North America's 6 Class 1 railroads to package an inland solution as well.
Okay.
So in Minot, what we did was a little bit different in the sense that we unbundled or decoupled the supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
We negotiated effective water rates from port to port.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the opportunity within my own network to negotiate with BNSF on the inland portion between Seattle, Tacoma, and Minot.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly valuable for me to have both an NVOCC experience plus the opportunity to operate the inland piece as well.
Mm-hmm.
And largely that otherwise is only experience that an ocean carrier would be privy to.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of time in the market, it feels like rail is very unattainable, or there's a huge veil between what the market thinks is possible and what the railroad has to offer.
Yeah.
And in that, I learned that there was a lot of inefficiency.
Yeah.
and also that rail is North America's greatest asset, specifically the freight rail network.
Yeah.
It is highly underleveraged. And really, I just became very passionate about how you find efficiency within leveraging railroads.
Mm-hmm.
And rail is incredibly reliable. It's incredibly safe.
Yeah.
It is really a top performer as far as the overall picture of an international supply chain.
Yeah.
But it's not always characterized that way
Right.
to the end consumer. So anyway, on my journey, when the oil boom in North Dakota went away, so did the imports into Minot.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so it was time for me to decide really what my next step in my career would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved what I got to do within my role at BNSF Logistics.
Yep.
And just that idea of decoupling the ocean and the rail and finding ways that you could optimize rail.
Yeah.
And since then, it's grown into how do you work alongside of the major ocean carriers to actually provide this service to them?
Yeah.
Because largely, we're such a small company.
Yeah.
We can be very nuanced. We can be micromanage every container that comes through our doors.
Yep.
When you're the size of a huge ocean carrier, that becomes a lot more challenging, and everything has to be very systemic.
Yeah.
So we're trying right now. One of our focuses is figuring out how we take what we've learned and apply it at a larger scale.
Yeah.
And coming alongside of ocean carriers. So Valor Victoria, just in closing this question and what it means, it's been a really fun journey. When I left BNSF and decided we were going to start this initiative, it was incredibly daunting. It was not something that I had planned for my life. But it really, I was so passionate about the cause that it seemed like the only option.
Yeah.
And so the name Valor Victoria really just means courage in the face of obstacles, and the Victoria part is victorious. So courageous victory is what the company name translates to.
Oh, I love that so much. So when you co-founded, it was you and Megan?
Yes.
Right? You and Megan co-founded together. And then now how many people are on your team?
Roughly 50. We have
Holy cow. I actually didn't even know that.
Okay.
That's amazing. Okay, please continue. Sorry.
No, we're exclusively a remote company. We are looking to open an office here in Fargo now that our company's officially moved back to North Dakota.
Yeah.
But we've got from Hawaii to Scotland is our exclusive, our team that works remotely. And then we have about 20 individuals in Bangalore, India as well.
You do?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So what is that? So why did you guys move back to North Dakota? I know Thomas and the farm, but was that the only reason?
Oh, no, not for sure. I mean, culturally, we're just North Dakotans.
Right.
I belong on the prairie as much as I love going to the city. And I'm so thankful my job takes me to New York City and LA and Seattle and all those wonderful places that you want to visit. This is where home is. Yeah. And for me, it's just culturally, we belong here. And our family is here, and with having young children and trying to do some pretty big things between running a business and starting a first-generation farm, that really takes a village. If you're also raising children successfully and stewarding them well. So we just really cherish our family time, and we're blessed that we have two great sets of grandparents, and so wanted to be closer to them for all the benefits that they offer our family.
Does North Dakota, just as a North Dakotan, because I don't know if you know this, but there was a recent study by a capital firm saying North Dakota is like the 51st most friendly places for female entrepreneurs, which there's other statistics too all around that. And as I was digging into that particular one, because I was like, I don't think that's entirely true. I'm curious about their metrics. In the same study, they also said that North Dakota female entrepreneurs have multiplied by 444%. And so I'm like, so obviously we're not doing too bad. Their metrics are interesting to me. How has just like the state of North Dakota impacted your business, or has it at all as a female entrepreneur?
I don't know that it has as a female entrepreneur yet. I think part of it is that we, just in our season of life, we, and also stewarding a business that was, we were kind of running to catch up with.
Sure.
We stayed under the radar in North Dakota for
Yeah.
quite a while.
Yeah,
Of just
like
we were busy raising our family, stewarding the business, farming, harvesting, planting, all of the seasons of farming, and so we really realized in the last year what amazing benefits the state makes available.
Yeah.
And started going after them. I would say that just for entrepreneurs in general, the state is incredible.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would
and I don't even know. I mean, I'm not sure of the connections between like Emerging Prairie of that being a state-run organization or funded in any way. But what that group has done and what really brought us together was Startup Brew. And
right. Yeah.
just the tools that are made available to entrepreneurs in North Dakota, I have not seen anywhere else. I can't say that I investigated it as thoroughly when I was living in other states, but from what I've heard and just experienced, it's a very entrepreneur-friendly state.
Yeah.
And as far as application to being specific for female-owned, I haven't seen that there's any advantages in that regard, but we're also just starting to get into some of the programs that are available too.
Well, and there's also really I actually don't think there's disadvantages. Like I when I saw that, I was just like, I don't actually know about the validity of it. Anyway, it was interesting to me. So I was just curious if that was at all part of your experience. Something you say often is stewarding your children, stewarding the business, stewarding the farm. Can you maybe for someone who's not familiar with that type of verbiage, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we believe everything we have is just absolutely a blessing that we've been entrusted with. And my husband and I come from a faith background where biblically there is a parable of the talents, and what you do with that which is put in your hand really dictates what the future outcome is, and how you show up every day is it's planting a seed that will yield a harvest. Yeah. And you're either planting weed seeds or you're planting a good seed of something that you want to reap the benefit of one day. And so when we say stewarding, it's really just recognizing that we're partnering at a higher level to really facilitate what God has called us to in our lives. And that's encompassing beyond business. For me personally, it's our family. It's what my husband's dreams are in the farm. Yeah. And just the total package of it and how it all works together. Yeah. For us, it wouldn't work without the total package of relying on our faith to sustain us. And once you get to a point where you're doing this many things at once, you really don't have any other option. Right.
That's awesome. Yes, I totally agree. I kind of want to go back for just a second. When did you found Valor Victoria?
Yes, 2016.
2016. And so now you have over 50 people. How was that scaling process for you? I just think scaling is such an interesting beast in and of itself. And so I'm thinking about stewarding your resources, stewarding your family, the farm, stewarding those relationships with people. You and I share, of course, we both love Danny Silk and like his culture of honor and the business of honor. What does that look like for you when growing a business?
Yeah, so culture is very important to us as a company, and we took that verbiage, culture of honor, and applied it to our business. It's been something that we actually led every meeting with. What is an example of culture of honor that we show? And in business, for us, that means always honor isn't about how other people treat you. Honor is about who you are and how you
Right.
respond.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. We work in a very, very fast moving pace that's got high stakes, and so
Yeah.
often there's a lot of emotion in our
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
and we have to remember just to give people grace and realize that somebody who might be presenting in a very negative emotional sense
Right.
might be your best partner in a
Yeah.
month from now. So
Right.
just keep that in mind.
Right. Yeah.
In how you respond,
Mm.
and you're never going to regret responding in honor, right?
Right.
And so because there's, again, so much emotion and high stakes in the industry we work in, it's just a constant reminder for us that we are a very collaborative people. We know what we're called to do, and we're going to go out there and get after it. But we also want to see our vendors win. We want to see truly, we look at what our customer need is, and we look at what our vendors have available, and we bring it all together. We try to be that neutralizing force, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
So everybody wins. And oftentimes that is the case of how it works. And that's really fun to see.
Yeah. This is so funny because I feel like I know you, but I'm sort of like, I kind of don't. And so did you use venture capital? Was that a part of your process, or have you grown and scaled? And what has your process for that looked like?
Absolutely. Well, shout out to our husbands, Megan and mine both. They were our angel investors.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Great.
So that's what we say, because they let us start the company and not take salaries for quite a long time until there was a opportunity to start making money as a business. And so we bootstrapped the company.
You did.
And we're now at a season where our growth is hitting us so quickly that we are looking at growth capital.
Yep.
And that's a whole new world that we're learning how to navigate now. But that's something new for us.
Yeah. Are you enjoying that part, or is it intimidating? Like, how do you feel about it?
It's to be determined, kind of. It's exciting. I think, there's a difference between capital and smart capital, and wanting to make sure that whatever changes we employ for the next season of our business really makes sense for aligning with the culture we've built,
right?
And the nature of excellence when it comes to showing up for our customers. All of that needs to remain intact for what our future looks like. But I do know that there's people who have gone before us that know a lot of the things that we're navigating and would be great partners to have in our back pocket. So we're learning very quickly, as quickly as we can, about what we want and what we don't want. And thankfully, because we've been able to bootstrap the company to this point, we do have interest, and so that's been good. There's options available to us, and we're just looking at what those could entail for us.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. So talk a little bit about your family. And I mean, I've seen your kiddos, but how has that? I mean, I can't remember the name of the book, but it talks essentially about like only one of a couple should pursue the big dream or whatever, so that the other one can support. But you and Thomas are both going after different but united big dreams. And so, like, how does that impact the two of you? And then also, as using your verbiage, stewarding your children and your family and having it all. Like, what has that experience been like for the two of you?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
No.
I would say I want to just call out that us both doing big things, and yes, it's a lot of work. It's very hard, and it's actually a lot of risk that we manage and think about as a family. But from a lifestyle perspective, when my husband was in a corporate job and we were building Valor Victoria, there's always an underlying risk component there too that I think is unrecognized. And my husband also had quite a bit of travel in his previous job, where our first child, our son, was born, and I was probably for 8 months, and then COVID hit, which was a blessing for us. But our child was about 8 months old before my husband stopped traveling because of the pandemic. And I would say that lifestyle was actually harder on us as a family because you were under somebody else's demands. And so now we definitely have our own pressure, and the pressure is very personal. But we actually get to write the rule book on really when it's important for us to show up at the farm versus showing up for our kids. And that's, I know that it's in a lot of corporate environments, it's gotten to be a lot more flexible and family friendly, but now we have achieved that type of freedom, if you will. And we just know what the consequences are in the risk that we have in our hand. And so it's always something we're managing for. In 2024, we set out to prioritize family time differently. And so one of the things that we did was get a annual calendar that's on our wall so we can see every month. And we actually color code the time that we're spending with our family, the time that we're spending on farming, the time that we're spending traveling for Valor Victoria, so that we can visually see if our life is in balance or not. And that's been a really successful tool for us. And it's led to a lot of harmony in our home. But we're going to keep building on it in 2025 and find new ways. But ultimately, it's just making a conscious choice every day. I think the thing that's still we're trying to figure out and navigate is, because of the big things that we manage, and I would say the risk that we are constantly measuring and assessing is just the energy drain at the end of the day. And how, because our son is in kindergarten now, how at the end of the day you have enough left over to give to your children and make sure that you're really present for them in the 3 hours essentially in the weekday that you get with them. So.
I love that. And I actually really appreciate how much you talk about risk. And that, that was one of the things when I was restarting She Overcomes, was looking at courage and risk and where women are stepping in or not stepping in, and like we talk about confidence and courage and community, and really the confidence piece is really actually self-worth. It's confidence is exterior. It's that 10,000 hours, you can nail confidence, or you can fake, or, faith confidence. Self-worth is different. And so we have that piece here. And then we have this space of risk. Do you feel like you've always been a risk taker, or have you trained yourself to do certain things in order to embrace risk? Or how have you done that? Because you are engaging in a lot of risk, but it's like, to me, I'm like, I love it. I'm like so excited by it. But can you tell me more about how you and Thomas have developed that, or if it's just come really natural?
I'd say it's come a bit more natural for me. I think birth order actually does have something to do with it. I am the youngest child in my family, and I was the only girl, really, which helps now in a male-dominated industry. I think that was a big part. My upbringing had a big part to do with the risk component, and then in the sense that I did not grow up with a lot of material things. And so when you know what it's like to be without, you know you're okay.
Right.
You know that life goes on, and that it's all going to be fine. And to be on the other side of it, having material things is better, but it's not. It's not the really meaningful things in life. The meaningful things in life are our family and our loved ones, and so just keeping that in mind has been helpful in assessing risk. And just, again, if you have a faith that you've been called to this business or this the farming operation, then you have to trust that it's all going to work out. And that's just something that you have to grow in. And I don't know how you'd be an entrepreneur without that, but a lot of people do it very successfully. And so, but for me and our family, it's really worked to anchor ourselves to the hope and the trust that, we were supposed to be here. We showed up with what we know how to do, and we continue to invest in ourselves to do better. And so far it's working for us. But getting comfortable with risk is something new. And you do get to a point where, you're just all in. And so you just have to keep showing up and walking forward and trust it works out. But again, having gone without, that having things is better, but it's not ultimately what matters.
Right. So on a super practical level, as a business owner, as a mom, as a wife, tell me like your calendar for a day. Like what time? Like this is such a funny question, but what time do you wake up in the morning? What does your daily routine, very practically speaking, look like in order to do the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I could tell you I wake up at 4:30 and exercise.
I know, me too. This is actually just a selfish question. I'm just super curious. It has nothing to do with our listeners.
I did one time last week, so I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that.
Good job.
But no, my typical day starts about 6:15 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
We have school drop off, and so we have to get our son to kindergarten by 8 a.m., which we live somewhat in a rural part of Fargo, which it takes a little bit to get places. So we just have to have time to, pack lunch, do breakfast, get ready for the day and get out the door. And then come back home. And working from home today, we largely just have meetings and work remotely from our home really till 4:30.
Yep.
And then we have childcare in our home that leaves at 4:30. So we try to wrap up our day about that time. And then we go into time with the kids and dinner and bed. Kids are in bed by 7. And at that point, I try not to go back on my computer and finish emails for the day, but that might be when I would do that. Otherwise, from 7 till 10 p.m. is the part of the day where I try to decompress and have time to invest in myself or Thomas and I together. And so that's really what the day looks like.
Yeah. I think it's so good because I'm someone I've started a couple of businesses and I had just the worst boundaries around when to shut it off, and I couldn't shut it off. And then that really, so for me, it very much negatively impacted me. So I'm always curious, how are you doing that? How are you shutting down? And I think a lot of times, listening to that, I've heard one person who they get up at 4 and they're, checking the accounts and they're exercising. And I'm like, I don't think I'm wired quite like I want to be wired that way, but I'm not in the season that I'm in. And so I love listening to how are you, one, honoring yourself and your family and your husband and your business and in your words and stewarding all of those things. So I love it.
I think one of the things that Thomas and I had to put a boundary on early on was if we have heavy things at work, we don't take them into conversation after 5 o'clock.
Smart. Yeah.
And so we had to strategically put time on our calendar where we could talk about them.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about something really heavy that's happening at work just before dinner, you're not present with your kids. No. And so, I think that's specific to us because we're both working in the business. And so there's a lot we could talk about. And it's just a conscious choice not to allow that to dominate our mental space.
Right.
But to have the sacred time that we carve out for family to be as present as we really can be on any given day.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I love that so much. Okay, if there was one thing that you could say to your younger self, maybe to your 18-year-old self or whichever version I guess you want, what would that be?
So many things.
I know, right?
I think the lesson that has probably served me well, and it's really silly, and I even almost hate to admit it out loud, but I think more of us struggle with this than just me. But people don't really care about what you're doing. Yeah. They're not watching you as much as you think, and they've got their own lives. So just live yours and move on. And I think the element of being afraid of what other people thought about your life choices or risks that you're taking, in the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And so be true to who you are and what you feel energizes you. Right. And I think growing up, you have put on you sometimes expectations of what you think people want you to be. And ultimately, there's a really unique purpose for each of us.
Right.
And nobody would have told me that there's a career for me in railroading.
Yeah.
And that was just, I guess, maybe from a switch crew operating level. Yes, that's been modeled in my family before, but to have the opportunity to work with just, again, North America's greatest asset and reimagine how U.S. commerce flows across our country.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that was never on the pipe dream list of things that you
Right.
could do.
It wasn't on the bingo card.
No.
Yeah.
And so, I think that just um, letting yourself move towards the things that interest you. And then one of the best piece of advice I got in graduate school was from my professor, who's here still and a great mentor in my life, Dr. Bill Wilson. He had mentioned that you have to specialize. So
Yeah.
the more specialized you are, the more in a demand you become.
Mm.
And so I guess that was counterintuitive to me when I was
Yeah.
young, that you want to kind of cast a wide net.
Yeah.
But really, the more you specialize into a certain thing and can become an expert about one thing, the
Yeah.
more in demand you become. And
right.
that's really served me well because I really only do one thing.
Yeah.
And,
That's amazing.
and we're just continuing to hone in that one skill of intermodal shipping and growing into it deeper every year. So.
Yeah. If you were speaking to a woman right now who is struggling to step into risk taking, who is struggling, to feel bold or to do the thing, or maybe they're just like feeling like, I don't know my purpose. How do I find that? And feeling that sense of like drawing towards desire for specialization and purpose, but don't know where to start. What would you say to them?
Follow your energy. Really, the things that we're passionate about do energize us,
Right.
and the things that sometimes expectations of where we think we should be can drain you.
Yeah.
And so, if you're filling your day with something that drains you, you're probably not where you need to be. But
Right.
you have to take small steps to getting there too. It doesn't just happen instantly. And it's amazing how one little risk or one little stepping out. It may not even be a risk in a tangible sense, but in a reputational sense, maybe.
Right. Sure.
But one step at a time, all of a sudden you're kind of building a Rolodex of something pretty amazing. And
Right.
so it really just takes repetition of showing up and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations because our growth never happens when we're comfortable.
Right. I know.
So-
I know it's worse.
And then just having the support network around you that cheers you on, because for me, I would not have had the opportunities that really led to Valor Victoria had my husband not supported us
Right.
with
Yeah.
going all in and just saying, okay, we're going to invest in this dream and see what happens.
Yeah.
And so that's a different dynamic that, is unique to every person.
Right. Oh, I love that. Okay. What, here's my one little rapid fire question. What's one book you think every single person should read?
I am really biased, but I have become very passionate about the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's I'm biased because it's about an entrepreneurial journey.
Sure.
And it's a great book to listen on Audible. But just to realize that really nobody knows what they're doing when they first start. Even Phil Knight, who had built Nike.
Right.
I mean, so much of his journey is just so endearing because I see the underlying heart and the effort that led into and the repetition of showing up that led into a great American company. But in the book, it very plainly articulates that nobody knows what they're doing.
Right.
And they just have to work through it and guess and check in some degree of how you get to
guess and check. Yes. Yeah. I love that.
get to the end result. So
I love that. And we talk a lot about the imposter syndrome and the whole hack is everyone is experiencing, as everyone is to a degree kind of winging it. We're all winging it. But I love that. Guess and check and check and check. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. What is one, okay, here's my last question before we wrap is, what are, maybe not even one, but if you had a big ask to the community of listeners, what would be things that you need to grow? What would be like your big asks to our community to support you?
Goodness. Well, what's fun about being in Fargo and being part of a global company is we actually get to bring the market to Fargo when I'm on so many calls. And we do a round of introductions. Everybody talks about where they're from, and Fargo is usually a point of a little bit of laughter. Like Fargo, it's the one place I've never been. And it is in the movie often gets referenced. But I think for us, it's really more about what we can do to become bigger part of the community. I mean,
Yeah.
every time we've shown up, the community has been
Yeah.
out in spades, just
Yeah.
there to champion,
Yeah.
and without even knowing us, which is
Yeah.
incredible. So, from a community aspect, I mean, we're getting to know the state better. We're
Yeah.
getting to know the programs that are available to entrepreneurs. So, if you have advice for things we're not looking at yet, please bring all that our
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But as far as just, being, if for any of the businesses that have gone before us and the journey that we're on and scaling a company, I mean, we'll take mentorship,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
take advice.
Yeah.
But really, a lot of what we do is working at a global scale. And so I don't know that I have a specific answer for you on that, but
Yeah,
if,
that's
if
all
I
right.
do
Yeah.
before this is published, I'll let you drop something in the notes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for coming. I'm so excited. I'm just excited for what you and Thomas and Megan and her husband are doing. Like, it's just fun because you're right. Like, Fargo is very unassuming, and I think the thing I love the most, to a degree, in Fargo is you're like one or maybe two people away from like your next big breakthrough.
Yeah.
And there's the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yep.
I'm convinced in North Dakota it's 2. Like we're 2 away. So I can't wait to see even just like where you guys go. And so, okay, for any woman listening who wants to step into her bold era or wants to connect to what you're doing, how can people find you online or email or LinkedIn or whatever? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is probably the best form of our method now. We're working on some tools to become more accessible through social media platforms. But
Sure. Yeah.
Today, LinkedIn is probably our best avenue.
Makes the most sense. All right. Okay. If you have enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe for more episodes where we feature leaders like Ashley who are making a huge impact. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my gosh. Of course. Well, and now you guys must know that we are having the She Overcomes Women's Conference on March 27th, 2025. Ashley, you are locked in, correct, as one of our speakers?
I will put it on the calendar. Yes.
Yeah, right. We've had like loose conversations around this, and so now I'm just putting Ashley on the spot. Okay. So thank you so much for being here. You guys make sure to save the date. We are just so excited to keep doing what we're doing. We want to see all women walk in their authority and power as bold leaders in each sphere of influence they belong to. So remember, you are stronger than you think you are. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you.
Yes.